6:15 p.m. in Agiati-Bafut in the northwest region of Cameroon, same time in Douala, Cameroon. Thanks for joining me on the Primetime Newscast in the English language on Canal International. My name is Gladys Ambudiban. Stay tuned for Art of Stories. 5 detainees of the Kondengui prison in Yaoundé accused of financing Boko Haram activities have been released. Detainees were members of the vigilante group of the Kolofata community in the far north region of the country. Their release has been described as a step towards fair injustice and the respect of human rights. With the rising phenomenon of drug consumption in the school milieu and its associated violence estimated at 60%, a detox center for the care of these students has gone operational in the nation's capital, Yaoundé, an effort in the fight against the phenomenon. And the president of the Cameroon National Communication Council has lamented over the use of insultive and uncultured language by some media practitioners, most of whom are out to settle scores and attack private lives through the media. George Bonkem Kalabopse was speaking in Yaoundé today, few days after sanctions were levied against some journalists and media organs for defamation, unprofessionalism, and indecent content. Those were our headlines. Details right ahead.
Canal International.
Good evening once again, and thanks for joining us on the Primetime Newscast in the English language on Canal International. We begin with this story from the far north region of Cameroon, where 5 members of the vigilante group of the Kolofata community in that part of the country detained at the Kondengui prison over allegations of financing Boko Haram activities have finally gained their freedom. They have been released thanks to the benevolent legal move of barrister Amungwa Nicodemus, who stumbled on the victims while equally arrested on secessionist allegations. Their release, he says, is a step towards fair injustice and the respect for human rights. Hysentia tells us more.
Tears of liberation and freedom. These 5 members of the vigilante groups in Kolofata have spent over 13 months in detention, charged with the allegations of financing Boko Haram, a claim they lament was rather a bitter way of paying them back after 7 years of their benevolent work to combat insecurity. I have been fighting against Boko Haram. We, the vigilante members, are enemies of Boko Haram since 2014 till when I was arrested. I have been working with the military against Boko Haram. So when they say we finance Boko Haram, it is not logical at all. Meeting behind bars with barrister Amungwa Nicodemus at the State Secretariat for Defense in Yaoundé, who was also arrested on accusations of secessionist activities, was a union of hope. They explain. There is always hope with God. When we were inside, I didn't know that Amungwa was a lawyer. I explained my situation to him whenever we were discussing. The day he was released, he told us that he will fight for our release. We were surprised days later to meet him at the military tribunal. That is how he took up our case file. Their release by the military tribunal, after found not guilty, the human rights lawyer underlines that there is a possibility for fair justice in Cameroon.
Their release is telling us that something can happen in our country. We shouldn't be discouraged. So I think God sent me to meet these people and to get another story of it. Because if we're talking only about the cases in the Northwest, maybe they will tag me as a lawyer who is supporting one zone.
The respect of human rights, he insists, is a vital element in the life of a country.
A country where it's a state of law should be proud that human rights abuses thrive in that country, because it impacts on your economy, it impacts on your international relations.
The ex-detainees, all married, will be regaining their wives and children in Kolofata, far north region of Cameroon, in the days ahead. And despite their misfortune, they express the will to continue the fight against the Boko Haram insurgencies to bring back lasting peace in their locality.
And in Douala, in Cameroon's economic city, the Douala City Council has promised stopgap measures on the roads leading to PK21 from PK12, which is currently in a bad state. The city mayor, Roger Mbasantine, made the promise during the second ordinary session aimed at assessing the 2022 education budget in Douala. The details in that report. Characterized by potholes and large pools of water, the stretch of road between PK12 and PK21 is almost impracticable. Road users are lamenting as the situation gets worse by the day. It is hell. The road is in a bad state. We are unable to ride freely. From PK14 to this area, trailers have destroyed the road. Rehabilitation work are progressing, but on a slow pace. We deplore the contracting firm because in spite of government's effort, the company is not helping. This work should have been completed 4 years back, but the execution rate is not even at 50%. The bad state of roads constituted part of deliberations at the second ordinary session of the Douala City Council aimed at assessing the execution rates of the budget for the 2022 fiscal year. Officials said only stopgap measures can be taken at the moment to alleviate the population from the mobility challenges in the area. Meantime, it was disclosed that the balance in income and expenditure for the year stands at 58.9 million francs CFA, while debt payment and procurement stands at 100.9 million CFA francs.
We have improved our revenues and we are doing well with the expenditures. The future is about mobility. The future is about roads. The future is about floods. We have to fight against floods. That's what we are going to do.
The City Council has as priority to improve the state of roads, public lightings, fight against floods, and improve public gardens. And we take you to the non-division of the West Region of Cameroon to talk about the installation of the new subdivisional officer for the Jimum subdivision. The new divisional officer has been recommended to reevaluate agricultural as well as livestock activities in that area. Sherifa Saleh tells us more.
With heightened insecurity in Jimum, one of the subdivisions of the non-division of the West Region of Cameroon, due to threats of separatist fighters that hamper agricultural and livestock activity, the new subdivisional officer for Jimum Tanifo Likpa Cesar Roger is expected to contribute in resolving the problems. While officially installing him into his functions, the senior divisional officer for NUN also recommended that he reinstate hygiene and sanitation.
Monsieur Canefo Likpa Cesar Roger. Prenez le commandement.
Serving the population should be his first target, as assigned by the SDO. Tanefo Likpa Cesar Roger leaves the position of the second assistant senior divisional officer to replace Kinyuta Patrick, transferred to Akko subdivision of the Northwest region.
And we have the National Communication Council that has elaborated on the sanctions that were meted out on some journalists and media organs over the weekend. Talking to the press today in the nation's capital, Yaoundé, the president of the National Communication Council, Joe Kalabose, lamented over insultive and uncultured language used by some media organs, some of them settling scores. You have more with Hyson Shia.
With a couple of sanctions dished out to some journalists and media organs last July 28 by the National Communication Council after examining 18 complaint files, Joseph Chobonken Kalabopsi this day highlighted a number of irregularities and professional misconducts that guided their decisions.
Pompous headlines on the social media of duly accredited newspapers which did not carry correspondent reports. That is a phenomenon which is cropping up. The headlines themselves, they were hurting to the complainants.
In a press briefing at the headquarters of the National Communication Council, he deplores the judgmental report of some reporters worsened by indecent expressions.
Journalists who take upon themselves the role of either judges or social critics. And even if they do that, what was serious about it is the language used. Insultive language, which does not give credibility to any media organ.
As to what awaits journalists or media houses that will not yield to the sanctions, George Chobonke underlines that the law will take its course.
Administrative authorities and law enforcement officials take the relay when we carry out sanctions. So we want to think that they would do just what they are supposed to do. And so we think that because it's a national institution and the decisions are taken in all fairness, following professional norms, they have every reason to respect it so as to give credibility to our media as well.
The exchange with the press was also an opportunity to congratulate media owners or managers who regularly redress their employees to operate according to the canons of the noble profession.
And we talk World Breastfeeding Day. Cameroon joins the international community to commemorate World Breastfeeding Day that begins from the 1st to the 7th of August 2022. Initiated in 1992, the week is intended to promote the benefits of breastfeeding on both the mother and the baby. According to the World Health Organization, breastfeeding plays an important role in managing the burden of malnutrition as well as provide food security and reduces inequality in society. Breast milk is known to be the best food for newborn babies because it has antibodies that helps to prevent many pediatric ailments. It helps to fight germs and bacteria. The theme for this year's commemoration is Step Up for Breastfeeding, Educate and Support. According to UNICEF, a baby should be breastfed within an hour of birth, and this should continue for the first 6 months of the child's life. And let's talk about the impacts of plants disease on man and animal that have been highlighted in the nation's capital. That was over the weekend. This was at the first edition of the Yaoundé One University Researchers of Conference of the Yaoundé One University Researchers that met in the nation's capital, Yaoundé, to talk about the impacts of plant disease on man. They elaborated more on this as we hear from Umol Kotsume.
Plants like non-plants grow and reproduce as long as the soil is fertile, though affected. Plants like non-plants grow and reproduce as long as the soil is fertile, though affected by some pathologies like pests, which people most often neglect. Creating awareness is the main objective of this first conference on psychopathology.
Many people don't know that when the plant growth needs to be protected because there are many diseases and pests who are also coming to give losses in plant production.
Producers are not aware that some of the chemicals mostly used to treat plant diseases such as pests affect humans and animals.
We know that chemical management are very efficient, but they have harmful in production, in environment, and they have very, sometimes very cost for farmers. Now we have natural products we can protect the plant against diseases and pests.
Climate change is another factor like plant diseases that also reduce the rate of production.
Climate change have impact in every domain of production, and so even in pathology we have the impact of climate change. So we want to show that every farmers and producer can know that climate change is really now.
The conference, organized by the Psychopathology Research Unit of Biology and Physiology Department of the Faculty of Sciences of the University of Yaoundé 1, is creating awareness on the different types of plant pathologies like pests and methods on how to eradicate them in order to help boost the economic sector of Cameroon.
It is with that report that we wrap up this edition of the Primetime Newscast in the English language on Canal the International. It was a pleasure knowing you're watching, but you have the French edition at 7:50 p.m. with Alain Gislain Kanga. Up next is Debrief du Sport with Mathieu Fangwa. I will be yours again, same time tomorrow, God's willing. Bye-bye.